All right, it is time for a weekly wrap up and film goals check-in. Hey everyone, it is Shannon and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be me sharing my thoughts on week 11's film choices for my quarter one film categories. Wow, I need some better phrasing for that. Anyway, if this is the first video that you're watching of this style, welcome. What I am doing is in this first quarter of the year, I am focusing on watching films from 3 different categories. Those categories are monster movies, dance movies, and newly added world cinema to Canopy. And so this video is going to be about what I watched in week 11. We are almost at the end of the quarter. The first quarter has 13 weeks, but it is already spring. As you can see, I got some flowers. These flowers, when I got them, I didn't know what color they were. They were so close, these tulips. I didn't know. They're sort of like I actually still don't quite know what color they are. They're sort of like a peach white, and they're still like yellow or green at the base. I don't know. They're very pretty, and I love flowers. And yeah, anyway, flower tangent. It happens. Anyway, so let's get to what I watched this week. First, is just going to be a bit of a heads up. I did not have as much time to research these as I normally do. I'm filming a bit earlier than expected because something unexpected came up. So in the hopes of getting, another video out, it's going to be a little loose in terms of some of the details. But as always, I will link the IMDb pages for all of the films down below and any associated, mentioned things that that there's a good source for. I will, as always, put them down below. But let's get to the movies. So the goal was a monster movie, a dance movie, and a newly added world cinema to Canopy. How did I do in week 11? First up, I took a bit of a gamble with this film because the title sort of gives you a sense of maybe monster, but I will admit I didn't truly believe there might be a monster in it, but it went off of one service and came on to another, and I really wanted to watch it. So I took a gamble on Big Game. So Big Game, this is a Finnish film. It's a Finnish UK US Germany co-production from 2014. It's in Finnish and English. It's mostly in English, but it is also in Finnish. Stars Samuel L. Jackson, and also stars who I would say the protagonist is here. I don't know if I can read it. I'm like, which way is my eyesight going? I will leave the links down below. I would actually say this guy is the protagonist, and it follows him as during this sort of coming of age type of ceremony where Finnish boys of his age or from his neighborhood or area go off into the woods overnight on, I think, the eve of their 13th birthday, and they are supposed to come back at sunrise with something that they have hunted. So there is the sort of, I know that's not really, is that monstering? That's not really monstering, but I wasn't sure what this was going to be about. But anyway, so that's the idea. So he's on this, it has a different, it's a coming of age type, not ceremony, ritual, tradition might be the strongest, and he's not, necessarily the most hunterly type, but his father really is. And so we have that story, and then we have the story of Samuel L. Jackson, who plays the President of the United States, and there is, as you can probably tell, maybe by the image, he's on a plane. And, they end up adventuring together, so you can sort of piece together where some of those pieces might come from. I loved this movie so much. This is one that I had seen crop up. I actually was a little surprised that it's from 2014. I was surprised that it's now 10 years old, because I definitely remember hearing about this one. I really enjoyed the sort of vibe of it, the tone of it. It kind of feels like a combination of Goonies movies and Die Hard, like some happy medium, like people who watch those movies but maybe now have kids and want to watch movies with their kids. So it's not, I can't remember what it's rated, but it's not super heavy in like the violence, but there are, you know, explosions, and it's a bit more adventure spirited, but there are some tough themes, and there are some sort of real world type themes and there's some pretty tough stuff in this one, but it is usually dealt with very briefly, so maybe for younger audiences they wouldn't quite pick up on exactly what was going on, you know, that kind of thing. But generally, like for me, that's not something I'm concerned about. I'm just watching it for enjoyment, but I know sometimes it's helpful to know the sort of level of violence, perhaps. Let me know, is that helpful to know? Because I do try and sometimes include it, and so it's helpful to know if it's helpful. Anyway, but so yeah, so they end up being sort of like a ragtag duo in the wilderness in Finland, and I really loved it a lot, like a lot, and it reminded me a little bit of Rare Exports, and the guy who plays the protagonist's dad is also from Rare Exports, which is just a great film. I haven't seen it for many years. I think it came out around, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, and it's a great sort of non-traditional winter holiday movie. I can't remember exactly the story, but I really loved it, and it's a great sort of, I don't know, they have sort of similar vibes in a sense, that, I don't know. So anyway, but I really enjoyed this. I also liked I didn't have a chance to write down the remaining cast, but I know it also had Ray Stevenson in it, who I'm a big fan of, and I know that he passed away, and that one hit me. I feel like it's one of those things you never know which ones, like some you know are gonna hit you, but that felt quite unexpected. And he's in this as part of the Samuel L. Jackson's security team. We also have Victor Garber, and Jim Broadbent. So it's kind of funny in a way because, like, none of them are American, but they're all playing American. Jim Broadbent is not playing an American. Well, he still maintains an accent in his character, but like Victor Garber's Canadian. You know, it's just like Ray Stevenson's not American. You know, so it's just kind of funny that all of these people are playing this sort of the team around Samuel L. Jackson's character, and they're like not American. Anyway, so but this one was just a lot of fun. I liked the adventurous spirit. It had a lot of heart to it. It had some good action to it, and I really was you know, I was really in it. Like I was really invested in the characters and in the story. I had some of the reviews that I saw online felt like they thought it wasn't, and I find this is just such a weird criticism, like that it wasn't, I don't know, like that it didn't have enough, basically that it wasn't violent enough for, I'm like, it's just, for me, I'm like the opposite. I'm like, I like action, but I don't always like violence. Like people thought it wasn't exciting and stuff like that, and I don't know what movie they were watching, but I thought it was a lot of fun, and I was in it every moment of the film, and so it was a big win for me. I will say I don't think it necessarily qualifies, really. It doesn't really qualify as a monster movie, but I am really glad that I watched it, and it's okay to take a chance sometimes, I guess. I don't know. So, yeah, so there's the cast. I'm using a different app today, so yeah, so I really enjoyed it. And it was directed by, oh gosh, Jalmari Helander, who also wrote the screenplay, and it's based on their story. So their original story. So there you go. That was Big Game. I thought it was a lot of fun. So where do we go next? Let's see if I can do this. Oh, great. That actually worked. Okay. Then I watched, for my dance movie, I watched Dancing Queens. This is a Netflix original. This is actually a Swedish film. I did not know that. It's amazing how when I'm watching dance movies, usually if they have dance or dancing or step or something in the title, I will watch them, or battle. Actually quite frequently I'd have to look at all of the ones that I've watched. A fair amount of them have been like from around the world, and that is absolutely lovely. But I didn't know when I was watching it, I wasn't sure where it was set. So I can't differentiate like all languages. So I resisted looking it up till the end. I think eventually they did say something that maybe indicated it was Sweden. I'm not sure. But it follows a young girl who, like a high school age girl who, or maybe she might be up to 21. Yeah, maybe 21. Yeah, so maybe out of school, but not yet really in a workforce. She's in a small community in Sweden where she actually helps out her dad's store by delivering groceries by boat. So that's what she's up to. And then she ends up kind of going, she goes across the water to town and ends up working as a cleaner in a drag club. And then things progress, and then she ends up, sort of becoming part of the group there. But I do feel like, and first I'll say this and then I'll say that. So first I'll say I really enjoyed this. It was a drama at heart. It had a fair amount of feels. There are some, challenging but very frequent life situations in terms of her family, in terms of grief, and those kinds of things. And I felt that was really done well, and I really appreciated sort of the sentiment and the sort of the story that it was telling on that front. I will say one of the challenges that does come up is the sort of she's a cis woman who is so this is a slight spoiler, so I'm sorry about this, but it's hard to talk about this without saying so. She poses as a guy to audition for the drag troupe group, and so that does lead to some tension and some questions. I feel like they did tackle it a little bit, but they glazed over it also a little bit. But I feel like in the heart of it, it was more of a story of like finding your way kind of thing. And so because it is a social issue, and it's sort of just put here in this movie feels like it's mostly a drama, a story. And I'm not saying that it has to all be all one or all the other, but I do feel like they did talk about it, but I felt like it got sort of very smoothed over. But I think it was the surface, her character arc, it was part of it, but it wasn't all of it. That wasn't, it was kind of not knowing what else to do and needing a job. So let's do this, and not thinking about sort of the ramifications. So, but it's not the sort of focus, although it does come up as a tension point. If you're familiar with reading romances, it's one of those things when the misunderstanding just sort of goes on a bit, and people have different interest, comfort levels, irritation levels on how far and how long that goes. But I will say that it's not at the forefront, even though I've mentioned it, talked about it a fair amount. I really liked her story. I really liked the relationships and friendships that she creates and also already has in her hometown. So it is one of those things. I think it's because it sort of has that misunderstanding as a sort of focus, but it's and it is the central misunderstanding, but it's not the central focus of the theme. She wants to dance. This is an opportunity that arises. Was it the smartest thing to do? Maybe not. Was she trying to hurt anyone's feelings? Certainly not. Is that what happened? your mileage may vary. So, but generally speaking, in terms of like a journey film and a character development film and a dance film, actually, I don't know about a dance film, but the character development focused journey film, I thought it was really well done. In terms of a dance film, I actually thought that there was a nice variety of dancing in it, and it was one of the few times of the films that I've seen of dance movies in terms of this exploration, that multiple types of dance were included, and they weren't like being pitted against each other. Someone wasn't learning style A so they could get in in good with style B, or they weren't like, it didn't follow those formats. It all just sort of loved the dance at, in different ways, in different styles, and the same people can enjoy all of those things. And so that sort of acceptance, like appreciation of the arts in all of their forms really worked for me. Like that really, hits home. So I really appreciated that, especially because I've watched so many dance movies where it's like someone studies A and then they go and learn, get into like a different style, and then they bring it both together and they win the competition, and yay. And like, that's great. But like, I've seen that movie a lot. Like I've seen a lot of movies with that plot, but I feel like there's also something to be said for each of the forms to be like awesome in their own forms. So, and I do feel like it shows that, and I really appreciate that. So that was Dancing Queens, and so that was one more, and there's a bit of a look at the cast, and this one was directed by Helena Bergstrom, who is also one of the writers, along with Denise Karabuda. So yeah, so I really enjoyed it. So it was, I don't know whether I should show more. Like there's I thought it was really well done. Here's some more photos from the film, and this really gives a good vibe of it. And yeah, and so I really liked it. That was her grandmother, and yeah, and that was her dad. So anyway, I really liked it. I thought it was good times. Then I gotta say I struggled a bit with sorry, I'm spelling. There's some words I know better than others. And then I struggled a little bit to figure out what to watch for my newly added World Cinema to Canopy. For this time around, I tried 2 films and then decided not to watch them because they were both dubbed, and I realized I really prefer to watch films in their original language and not have them be dubbed, but there was no option for that. They were both dubbed, and it didn't even, I think one of them it listed it as dubbed, but the other one didn't, and they were both action movies. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to keep looking. And so then I ended up settling on Yakuza Graveyard, which is a Japanese film from 1976. This is, I don't know, I guess it's a crime film, or I wouldn't go as far to say a thriller. There are action scenes, but I think it's a bit more of a crime drama in it. And this one follows a cop who's new to a particular area and ends up just continually having different interactions with one particular group and of Yakuza, and I can't remember the name. There were different groups, and then it just it was just kind of like, I'm kind of like, what? Like I was like, while I was watching, I'm kind of like, I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on. Now, I will also say that for me, now this isn't an espionage film, but it is, we have cops, we have multiple gangs, and then, there's always sort of that potential of corruption. So there's lots of different people, there's lots of different groups, there's lots of motivations. And I felt like it didn't give you a lot of indicators for the protagonist what his motivations were, at least initially. We do eventually learn more about him, learn more about his backstory, but he is pretty stoic, and he is not, in terms of, not, I wouldn't necessarily say stoic philosophy, but like he is pretty like, you know, hard-boiled and like not phased by things. And I sometimes I couldn't figure out where that was coming from. Like, what did he want? Did he want to bring down the Yakuza? Because with the title of Yakuza Graveyard, I really thought it was going to be like, you know, like, I mean, like, putting those words together, I really thought it was going to be like, you know, he was going to go after them all. It's not quite what happened. He got kind of more involved than I thought he was going to get involved. And then there's lots of backstory with him, and there's just multiple like entanglements, and it just gets like more and more entangled as the film goes on. And this one is from, I don't know if I mentioned this one is from 1976, and I do find that 70s movies do tend to have, or they can tend to have, quite a dark tone to them, and it's one where I don't tend to love that. Like, I tend to, from 70s films, I tend to like sort of more like science fiction films or action films, but some that are a bit more dramatic can be more gritty, and I felt like this was sort of like that kind of vibe. Like, it went down sort of like a deeper and darker like kind of situation, but then it kind of makes you want to like I just kept on going like, who, like, what is, like, you know, and he doesn't really, he's new to town, and he doesn't confide in anyone, and there aren't really any voiceovers of him in his head, really, so I found like it was really hard to figure out what his motivations were. There was some really interesting cinematography in this one, though. They actually did have voiceovers explaining things, and they would have like still shots like inserted, like, and sometimes even like as action sequences. The action sequences were, I would say, for me, a little bit all over. Some just felt like a lot. There's just like a lot going on. It was hard to tell like what exactly was going on, and then some of them were really quite engaging, and so visually it was very interesting because it felt very different from a lot of things I've seen, but I haven't seen tons. I haven't seen tons from the 70s recently, so I don't know if it's like that was a technique that was used a lot. It did kind of remind me, there's the opening on Her Majesty's Secret Service, the Bond film, that has the guy who played Bond for that one time. The opening fight sequence of that felt very similar to this. Like, those felt similar to each other and sort of like how they were shot. And it's like got not steady cam, like running down the corridor chasing people that are chasing and fighting each other. And like, I'm like, I didn't know that people did that then, because like, you know, it was the quality of film was different and the equipment was a lot heavier, and like, you tend to see that now all the time as a style, but I didn't realize, you know, like here we're seeing it like, you know, from 1976. So that was pretty impressive. But overall, I will say, way darker tone than I would normally watch, and the lead is quite gruff, and I did find it a little tough to track his motivations. I don't know if I ever really could I don't know if I can say what his motivations were, but, you know, is that the only thing to appreciate a film? No, it's something that my mind tends to go to, but it's not the only thing. I thought the atmosphere was interesting, and it had lots of interesting characters. There was I enjoyed the cinematography. It kept me on my toes in terms of the plot, and I thought there were some really interesting like action sequences and turn of events and those kinds of things. So it was quite an engaging watch overall, but it was not what I expected. But but then some scenes like look completely different, you know, like, so that was quite and I could not find out. I didn't end up looking tons of information about that one. There's some look at the cast. Oh, there's a ton of photos for everyone. So yeah, it was, and this was directed by Kinju Fukasaru. I'm trying to see if there's more photos so you can get a bit of a vibe. Vinyl records, ashtray with a cigarette, like a lot of smoking in older films. You know, we don't see it as much anymore. Yeah, he wasn't usually having a good day. It was usually pretty dismal. His life was pretty dismal. So, And then, oh, I don't think I can show that one. So yeah, a little, I don't know what the right word would be, but not blasé, like a little more chutzpah than blasé. I don't know. And then the last one, and I did end up getting another one because I decided then to go back to one of the films that I decided not to watch because of the subtitles, the dubbed versus subtitle situation. I realized, I'm like, this is an action movie. Honestly, I'm watching it for the action. You know, maybe I should give it a shot. And with Canopy, once you start watching the film, I don't know how much of the film you have to watch, but I tried 2 films and they'd already considered that they were rentals because I had watched X amount of them. So on a different day, I came back to it and decided, okay, I'm just gonna watch it. I've already sort of like paid for it. It's a free service. It's connected to libraries, but you only get so many rentals a month, like Hoopla. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it. So I decided to go with, oh, I'm not going to show that image. So I decided to go with The New Big Boss, or Legend of the Wolf. So this is a Hong Kong action movie from 1997, starring and directed by Donnie Yen. So this one, I don't know why it has the 2 titles. I don't know what Legend of the Wolf refers to at all. I don't know what the new Big Boss makes a little bit more sense in terms of the story, but I do wonder if it's sort of like a callback to there was a Bruce Lee film called The Big Boss. Anyway, so this one has a framing device of a contemporary story, and then but most of it's a flashback story of Donnie Yen's character who returns home after a war and doesn't remember anything, but the people remember him, and then there's a rivaling town that sort of attacks them. So that's as best I can describe. And then the framing device is about someone who's looking to hire someone like a hitman, and then they're like, well, let me tell you a story. Do you really want this? And then tells this backstory. So I don't really know if it needed the framing device, I'll be honest, but it is used in a lot of films. But and the story, I'm not like, I'm pretty like all those things happened. I'm not sure how important the story is, but my gosh, the action. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It's interspersed and it takes a while, and the opening sequence, I actually did not know this was dubbed until 5 minutes because the entire opening sequence is all a contemporary action film, and it is quite bloody and it is quite unnerving, and there is some very challenging stuff, and I guess maybe I don't even know who was who like in that part of the story. I don't know who those characters were in relationship to the other story. I'm not sure. And it had but the cinematography was pretty interesting, and the fighting was good. But then, like, as we get to like the historical flashback stuff, oh my gosh, so good. I'm trying to see if I can get a good image. I know that they have tons here, but like, oh, sorry, this is taking longer than I expected. But like, it was really good. Like, really, really good. A lot of high flying kicks and stuff, but it took me a while. It took a while for that sort of to be apparent that was going to be a really big part of it. And maybe it wasn't a really big part of it, but it was a really great part of it. And there was one action sequence that there was a couple of stunts that I was like, oh, like, I actually was like, is that person okay? Should they be doing that? They shouldn't be. That feels, because this is also from 97. This is not CGI. Like, this is a person doing that thing, pretty much. There were effects at the time, and there is always like forced perspective and that kind of stuff, and, you know, harnesses and safety protocols and whatever. But I was just not really getting that vibe for some of these things. And there was one action sequence that I've never seen anything done like that before, and so even for you know, like, that was worth it in and of itself. That was particularly worth it. If I can find a clip of that particular fight, I will put it up above, you know, for you to check out. I don't normally do that, like a clip from a film, but that one was like, wow. And I have no idea how readily available this film is. And also the story was okay. I had a hard time piecing it together, even though it is quite a common story. And unfortunately, I will say one thing with this Legend of the Wolf or The New Big Boss, and Yakuza Graveyard, very few female characters. They very much play a love interest, you know, or a love interest that, or someone, a love interest who is or could be or will be threatened. And so it's, and that's something that I don't love about the genre of action movies, and I feel like the further back in time you go, the less likely you're going to get female characters in the story. And so that was one of the challenges with these two, was that there weren't many female characters, and they very much had that role of, like, you know, they're there to serve as an emotional tether, and, you know, and or be threatened. And I'm just like, there's lots of other characters that women can play. But generally speaking, I was watching this for the action, and it delivered on the action. It really delivered on the action. And so I'm glad that I gave it a chance. I glad that I put the 2 and 2 together, that, you know, although I don't want to, I would prefer to watch the subtitled film, I'm watching this for the action. I'm not watching it for the voice acting, or like, but I just love hearing other languages, you know, and so, but that's not, you know, what this film had to offer. For me, was the action, and the action was great. So I am glad that I gave it a chance. And I don't know how readily available it is in other formats. And if I had seen it around that time, I definitely probably would have, like, rented it from a store, and you wouldn't have had the option of dubs versus subtitles. You would have had whatever the film had. You know, maybe you'd be lucky if there even was dubbing. So, you know, I think it was worth it to give it a shot. Not my preference, but, you know, that's what's available, so that's what I went with. It is one more film scene. It is one more Donnie Yen film scene. It is one more Donnie Yen directed film scene. So I actually should look and see all the films that he's directed, because I have probably watched a fair amount of whatever that may be. So there you go. Those are the 4 that I ended up watching. So I actually snuck in a second film this time around, or an additional film this time around. I got 2 newly added World Cinema to Canopy. Ironically, neither of them are new, but that's okay. It's newly added. So, and I like watching films from any time period. So I'm actually really glad that they include, newly added can include stuff from earlier years. So I would say, generally speaking, all of these were pretty much big wins. Yakuza Graveyard was the hardest, because it was the toughest in terms of the subject matter and the tone. It's just not my favorite. But I'm glad that I got a Japanese film in. I think it's probably the first Japanese film I've seen this year. I think most of the newly added World Cinema I've seen has been from China. The New Big Boss is from Hong Kong. But I think, and then all of the like, this is a real international week, because I had a Finnish film, a Swedish film, a Japanese film, and a Hong Kong film. So I feel like that's good. And for me, I mean, like, I love that. So I'm really happy with how things turned out. And I apologize, this was a bit long-winded, but I did get that one extra movie in this week, and really getting close to summing up this first quarter. I have been working in some of my film journals, plural, and I've been trying to figure out if there's a good or easy or any way to sort of share that. I don't know if that's of interest. Honestly, I've mostly just, like, printed stuff off and glued it in. It's not super, you know, it's not super fancy or anything, but I've been trying to figure out the best way to capture films. I have my spreadsheet, which has all of the data, but in terms of, like, my thoughts and, like, having sort of, like, a visual record, I think is a little bit better. I know a lot of people use Letterboxd, but I find the ads on Letterboxd are like really aggressive, like, and they have audio and their video and they spoil movies that I want to see, and I know it's not that much to get them removed, but I mean, like, how many things do you have a monthly thing for, right? Or even if it's a yearly, but like, so anyway, I didn't mean to go down that route. I think it's a great service. I wish it was anyway, I did not mean to go there. I haven't used it. I've gone back to using Excel, but I do feel like having a visual, like something with the poster, and writing down my thoughts in like an actual journal or book is helpful for me, in terms of remembering stuff and figuring out what I like and I don't like, because that's also just helpful in general. This video is way too long, so I'm going to leave things there. So yeah, I have 2 weeks left to see if I can get to 10. I think I'm at like 6, 7, I think, or 6, 5, 7. Most of the, I'm trying to get to 10 of each category. I'm between, I think, 5 and 7. But I'm actually feeling great. I think I've done a really, really great job, and I do have 2 weeks left. So we'll see how things go. And of course, I'll do a reflection or a wrap up or a countdown or not a tier list, but like a something. I'll do a something, and then I'll have to decide what categories to pick next. I have one idea. I'll save that kind of stuff for the reflection though, maybe, or the announcement. I don't know. Anyway, more videos obviously incoming. Yeah, that's what I watched in week 11. I hope that you enjoyed that. Feel free to let me know what you've been watching recently. And if there's any sort of like different kind of films that you want to be watching in the near future, because that's sort of what's on my mind. It's not what I talked about here, but it is on what's on my mind, because I'm going to change things up for my focus for Q2, but I think things have gone pretty well, so I'm happy about that. Happy spring, and I will be back with a new video soon. Thank you so much for watching.